Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my channel. If you're new, I'm Kelly. This is K-Bella Beauty, and I am here with a little bit of a different video. I am going to be ranking my eyeshadow palettes. I put a poll up on my Twitter and in my YouTube community tab asking you guys what video you wanted to see next, and I list a couple options. And by far, I want to say that it was like 70% of people in my YouTube community tab selected ranking my eyeshadow palettes. So I don't have a super huge collection. In the beginning of the year, I did film a 5 palettes that I wanted to declutter in 2019 video. I can link that here if you have not seen that yet. I'm not talking about those palettes in this video. I have sold one of them on my Poshmark. The other 4 are still up there, but I'm not going to talk about those palettes because I'm decluttering them. They're out of my collection. But I do have 11 eyeshadow palettes left to share with you, and I am going to be ranking them based on least favorite or least used down to most favorite or most used. And I'll kind of chat with you a little bit about each one, and then if I do have individual reviews or makeup videos using each of these eyeshadow palettes, I will link that down below so that you can check those out if you're interested. But why don't we go ahead and jump into the video. So, the palette that comes in at number 11 is a palette that I really don't use anymore, and I've thought about decluttering it, but I still have it in my collection for whatever reason, and it is the Lorac Pro 2 palette. I have decluttered my original Lorac palette. I loved them when I first got them. I was a fan of the Pro 2 more so than the Pro 1. I did have this in my project pan for 2018. You can see I've hit pan on Nectar, and I do have dents in some of the others. This was a palette that I really loved when it first came out and when I first got it. I did always feel like the Lorac palettes were really easy to travel with. They're really lightweight, they're very thin. You can just throw them right in the suitcase and go. But it's just a palette that as my collection has grown, I no longer reach for it. And even when it was in my project pan for 2019, I found that I still wasn't really reaching for this palette a lot, and I decided not to declutter it. I wanted to hold on to it in case I decided that I wanted to use it, but it's really one that just sits in a drawer somewhere. All of my other palettes are like out in the open where I can see them, and this one just kind of sits in a drawer. So at some point I will declutter it, but that is that's the oldest palette in my collection as well. Number 10. Number 10 is a palette that my friend Samantha March here on YouTube raves about. It is one of her favorite palettes, but you can see it is one of my least favorite, and that is the, ooh, it's very reflective, Dose of Colors Marvelous Mauves. Now, I don't think that these are bad eyeshadows. I don't think this is a bad eyeshadow palette. You do get a little brush with it. Let me pull it out so that it doesn't fall. But I don't find myself reaching for this palette really ever. I picked it up when it was part of the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty sale, so I did get it on sale. I wanted to try it out. Samantha raves about it. This is one of her favorite eyeshadow palettes, and I'm glad that I got it because I did want to try it out. You do get 5 eyeshadow shades, and I have created a few looks with it, but this is just a palette that I don't find myself reaching for. You do get a lot of kickback in the pan, but I don't find that I get fallout on my face. And I mean, it's a cute palette, it's very tiny, it would be easy to travel with, but for whatever reason, I just find that I don't reach for it. This is a palette where I would have to tell myself, like, hey, you need to use this palette. So that's why it comes in at number 10. I just don't reach for it. Number 9 was gifted to me. It was a palette that I wanted for a really long time because it was a YouTube cult favorite, and that is the Too Faced Chocolate Bar. I went back and forth between the chocolate bar and the semi-sweet, but I did get this from my friend Smags as a Christmas gift a couple years ago. This is a very beautiful neutral palette. You have a lot of nice shades. People on YouTube have raved about this palette. They talked about how it has been an OG favorite for them. They use it time and time again. And I've gotten some good looks out of it. It has a really nice eyeshadow shades in here. It is good quality. I really love this, what is it, Creme Brulee and Marzipan lid shades. They're beautiful. I love that you get a very nice large white chocolate shade. I use that to kind of set my eyeshadow primer, but for whatever reason, I just find that I reach for my other eyeshadow palettes more. I don't dislike this palette. I do like it. It just, I just reach for other palettes more. So that is why that comes in at number 9. Number 8, another Too Faced eyeshadow palette. This was a recent purchase for me because this was in the Holiday 2018 collection, and it is the Too Faced Gingerbread Spice palette. Now, I am really glad that I got this palette and I got to try it before I bought it because my friend Smags had it. But this is a palette that I only reach for when I'm looking for certain looks. It's not a palette that I kind of reach for every day. I don't really get like my everyday looks from it. But if I want something that's like very warm or very berry, that's when I reach into this palette. It's very specific with the cranberries and the pinks and the oranges, and it's just not an everyday eyeshadow palette. I do like it. I don't dislike it. I'm glad that it's in my collection because I really, really wanted it and I do like using it, but I only reach for it for very specific looks, which is why it's number 8. Number 7 was a gift for me, and it was the Urban Decay Born to Run palette. I went back and forth on if I wanted to purchase this palette. Did I want to get it? Did I not want to get it? I love traveling. My husband and I have traveled a ton. I was absolutely obsessed with the packaging. I got this, was it for Christmas or for my birthday? One of the two, but either way, again, the colors are beautiful. I love this eyeshadow palette. I've gotten a lot of use out of it. The only reason why this is at number 7 and not higher up on the list is because I get a ton of fallout with this eyeshadow palette. I recently did a palette bingo, and you can see in that video, there was fallout all over my face. So anytime I use this palette, I have to go in with my eyeshadow shades first and then wipe away any fallout before going in with my face. So I like it. It's beautiful. I'm definitely glad that it's in my collection, but I get a ton of fallout. So there are times where if I'm trying to go for like a quick and easy makeup look, that's not the one that I reach for. Another eyeshadow palette that was new to my collection is the Dose of Colors Desi X Katy Friendcation palette. I picked this up on sale. I have a full review coming, so I don't want to talk too much about it. I did test it out Tuesday. I've done 3-in-1 tutorial. This is what the eyeshadow shades look like here. Basically, long story short, I love the mattes. Not in love with the shimmers. The shimmer shades kind of give me a ton of fallout all over my face. The mattes are really smooth, they blend easily, they're super creamy. I really, really like working with the mattes, but the shimmers, I get a lot of fallout. So the reason why this is number 6 is, again, because if I am using this eyeshadow palette, I have to do my eyes first before I can go in with my face makeup. So that's why it's kind of just the middle of the road. I do enjoy it, I do like it, but it's one where I know if I'm trying to go for like a quick and easy kind of look, don't reach for that one because it's going to take some time. Now we are getting into my top 5 palettes, and number 5 is a very large palette. It is the Morphe x Jaclyn Hill, the Jaclyn Hill palette. I absolutely loved this palette when I first got it, and I still do love it, don't get me wrong. I do love this palette, but it's very large. You do get a ton of shades. You can create a ton of looks with this. I love the versatility. It's mostly neutrals, but you do have pops of color that you can use, which are really, really nice. I do enjoy them. This was a palette when I first got it. I kind of had to force myself to put it down and use other eyeshadow palettes because I wasn't using other ones, but even though this is in my top 5 and it's one of my favorites, it is one that sometimes I kind of have to remind myself, like, hey, go grab that and use that, because there are other eyeshadow palettes that you will hear about in a minute that are just kind of grab and go, don't even think about it, I just grab it and use it. But this is still top 5, one of my favorites. I love it, I recommend it, I think the quality is great, and I just love how you get a ton of different shades. You can kind of create any look that you want. Number 4, the next 3, just letting you know, are all from the same brand. Number 4 is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Norvina palette. I was so drawn to this palette because it's so different. I don't have anything like this in my collection. You definitely have your neutrals in there, so you can use this for everyday go-to looks. This is what is on my eyes today, but you also have some pinks in there. You have some purples in there, a nice rose gold shade, so you can get some color with this palette. I remember when it first came out, some people were upset because they felt like they wanted it to be more purples, like they thought that it would be a specific, like majority purple eyeshadow palette. But I'm super glad that she threw some neutrals in there, because this is an eyeshadow palette that I can reach for every day, but if I am feeling like in the mood to do something a little bit different, I also have pops of color in here, which I really like. And you can see I have the rose gold shade on my lid, and so it's really nice. It's a little bit different, but it's not too much. So I like this. I love the quality of her eyeshadows. They do have a little bit of kickback in the pan, but I don't really find that I have a ton of fallout on my face, which is why this is an easy go-to, because I can do my face makeup before my eye makeup when I'm using Anastasia's shadows. And palette number 3 is the Master Palette by Mario. This was a collaboration between Kim Kardashian's makeup artist, Makeup by Mario on Instagram, and Anastasia Beverly Hills. This was a palette that caught my eye the second it came out. I was so drawn to it. I was in love with that Bronx shade, but I also love the golds in here. Kind of looks like a basic palette, I think. You have some basic eyeshadow shades, but there was something that drew me in, and I knew I wanted to add this to my collection, and I'm so glad that I did. When I first picked it up though, it was a palette that I picked up, used a few times, and then it sat on my shelf, and I really fell in love with this even more when I did my 2018 Project Pan, because this eyeshadow palette was in there, this one along with the Lorac palette, and I would reach for this one every single day. I would create just beautiful natural looks for work, but you could also go in and really make it smoky with Bronx or Paris or Claudia. So I loved the versatility. I could use it for every day, but I could amp it up a little bit. And again, I love Anastasia's formula. I love the quality. You do get kickback in the pan, but I find again that I'm not getting fallout on my face. So this is definitely a favorite of mine. Number 2 is the palette that I reach for when I don't know what I want to do. If I'm sitting there knowing I need to do my makeup, or if I need fast makeup, or if I'm just like, I don't know what I want to do today, I reach for the Modern Renaissance. This is obviously, it's number 2. It's one of my all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes. I have used it a ton. I definitely stick more to the neutral shades over here, but I do love that you can get cool toned. You can add a little bit of pink. This was the eyeshadow palette that I used in my friend's wedding that I was in November. I brought this eyeshadow palette with me. I used it. A ton of my friends used it. It's very nice for like everyday wear, and if I can't think of what I want to do with my makeup, this is what I reach for. So I think it was in one of my Best of Beauties. I want to say maybe it was in my 2017 Best of Beauty. That was the year that I picked this up, and I still love it. I'm so glad that I got it. It is number 2. That is what I reach for. But now what many of you are wondering, what is my number 1 most reached for favorite eyeshadow palette? You might consider this one cheating a little bit, because it is a Z palette that I created myself. But I've talked about these eyeshadows a lot, so if you are not new to my channel, you are probably very familiar with my Makeup Geek eyeshadows. These made my Best of Beauty before. They might have made my Best of Beauty every year. These are my favorite eyeshadows. I don't know if it's because I picked them out, so I curated this eyeshadow palette. It's my own, it's my favorite, it's my go-to. Oftentimes I have to pull this away from myself, and I have to force myself not to use these eyeshadows to give my other palettes some love. But The only thing is I don't really travel with these because I'm afraid that the Z palette's gonna break or that they're going to break in the Z palette. So I would reach more for my Modern Renaissance when it comes to traveling and things like that. But on a day-to-day basis, if you were to ask me my favorite eyeshadows, I would say my Makeup Geeks. These are the ones that I use the most. I absolutely love them. You can see that I've hit pan on a couple and I have some dents in some of the others, but these are just go-tos for me. If I were to add up the price of this palette, it's probably my most expensive, but these eyeshadow singles as individuals are very affordable in my opinion. You have shimmers, you have mattes, you have duochromes, you have foils. She kind of has everything that you're looking for, in my opinion. So you could create a smaller 9-pan eyeshadow palette for yourself, or you can have a whole Z palette full of eyeshadows like me, but this is my number one. Most reach for, favorite eyeshadows. And that is it. Those are my 11 eyeshadow palettes, ranked in order from least favorite and least used to most favorite or most used. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. I think it's very interesting how different people have different opinions on eyeshadow palettes. When I was putting this together, I was just kind of chuckling to myself because, like I said, Samantha March is one of my favorite YouTubers. She was one of my first friends here on YouTube, and she absolutely loves the Joseph Colors Marvelous Mauves, and that is like a top favorite for her, and it was the bottom of my list. And it's not a bad palette. None of these are bad palettes. I haven't decluttered them, obviously, because I like them, but they're just not, you know, some of them aren't my most used, most reach for go-to favorites, and each person has their own preference. So I just think it's really interesting to hear people's favorites. Actually, I would love if you would leave your top 3 favorite eyeshadow palettes in the comments down below, because I think that'll be really fun to hear. I want to know what your top 3 favorites are. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for requesting this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed before you go, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.